G'day chaps, 'tis I, Clumputcher139. Batman Arkham Shadow is one of the best gaming experiences I've had in recent years. Camouflaj Studios fully understood what made the Arkham series so amazing and perfectly translated it into another medium like nobody else could. They gave us a brand new Arkham Asylum, which naturally means that the next step for them is to give us an Arkham City scale sequel by 2026. And seeing as they totally didn't confirm, but absolutely did confirm that they're working on something at Gamescom this year, it only feels right to start giving them ideas for the inevitable sequel. This video is all about the things that I want to see in a completely theoretical sequel to Batman Arkham Shadow, which, since we don't have a name for, I will simply refer to as Arkham Shadow 2 for the duration of this video. These are in no way predictions, nor insider information, just hopes and wishes for what I personally would like to see in Camouflaj's next outing. And hey, if they're still listening to me after all this time, maybe I can make some of it actually happen. Like a deranged sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. Either way, let's get into it. But first, a little reminder for those of you that haven't played Arkham Shadow yet. Firstly, what are you doing? Secondly, my deal with Meta is still going on, so you can use the links in the description to get your very own MetaQuest 3 or 3S that comes with a copy of Batman Arkham Shadow, as well as $30 in Quest Cash to get even more great games. You want to get in on this now, because if they do end up announcing another game, you won't end up behind on the times. Alright, enough shilling, let's get to my hopes and dreams.
But it wasn't my fault. He walked into my knife
27 times.
He was very determined.
Okay, I kinda lied. There is one prediction that I have for this game that Camouflaj kinda handed right to me. Out of every single character, moment, what have you in Arkham Shadow, the only one that deliberately feels like sequel bait is the ventriloquist.
Now's our chance. The cell is open! Give me that gun, Arnie boy!
Arnold Wesker, stop right there!
Well, finally some action! Now let's vamos, Arnold! There's gotta be a boat out of this hellhole. Gotham City, here we come!
He's one of the only characters we see throughout the entire game that also plays no major impact on the plot. I mean, sure, he's kidnapped by Dr. Crane in Chapter 4 and we kinda need to rescue him, but he's more of a passive observer than anything else. He's literally just there, and we've all accepted that with no eyes batting around. You could have easily replaced him with any other patient of Dr. Quinzel, and the story would have practically changed nothing. His entire story takes place in the background, where he's brought into Blackgate on murder charges, meets his cellmate Donegan, steals Woody from him, kills him, disposes of his body, and eventually escapes by gunning down guards during the riot. The game ends with him escaping out into Gotham with his prototype Scarface, soon to officially become the ventriloquist, I'm sure. I have a feeling that means he's going to play a much larger part in the eventual sequel. And with the direction that Arkham Shadow took Batman's character, it would actually make a lot of sense for a follow-up game. Arkham Shadow is all about calming Batman down, teaching him that he can't punch his way out of every situation. And the ventriloquist is one of the few foes Batman has that he doesn't punch his way through. In basically every modern iteration of the character, Batman goes out of his way to never harm Arnold Wesker. Only Scarface. So it would follow that since that way of thinking is now implanted in him through Arkham Shadow, he would need to prove that he can follow through with it in the sequel game with a character like the ventriloquist. It just makes perfect sense, and out of everything I bring up here is the one thing I have full confidence will almost certainly show up in Arkham Shadow 2.
Friends, we just met 4 eyes, and you're far too clingy for me.
Imagine something like this. A string of robberies has started popping up all across Gotham with no discernible tread pattern aside from the crew always getting away. Eventually, Batman is able to apprehend one of the crew members of these robberies and interrogates him, but all he's able to get out of the guy is something about a puppet. Investigation, crime scenes, what have you. Eventually he finds the Scarface crew's hideout and is completely thrown for a loop when he learns that the guy he caught wasn't joking. They really are working for a puppet. And in this instance, it's a puppet and puppeteer that he recognizes because of his time in Blackgate. So his usual strategies of jumping in and just beating everybody up won't work, because he's dealing with a very fragile man who using any violence against will likely only harm more. It'd be a very interesting dynamic Batman would have to deal with, and would also be really funny if we got a boss fight against Scarface that ends with just ripping the puppet's head off or something. I don't know, I think it's got a lot of potential. They set it up like this is the direction they're going, and I really want to see it. This is the one thing that I'm very confident in. The ventriloquist is just one of the most overlooked pieces of Batman's rogue gallery in the Arkham series. Scarface has been here through basically the entire saga, but Arnold has just been nowhere to be seen until Arkham Shadow. So with that game finally giving him some well-deserved attention, a true spotlight villain role just feels like the next logical step for the character to take.
Let him talk! Huh?
I can swear this thing's possessed sometimes. Let's hit the sack, huh?
Now what's next? Spin the bottle? Kinda difficult with a concrete wall between us. Now, don't go putting my hand in a bowl of water while I sleep.
One of the biggest praises that I can sing about Arkham Shadow is that it's the first Arkham game to fully stray away from the Joker. He has absolutely no impact on the Rat King's plot, or any of the going-ons in Blackgate for that matter. He simply exists as a little breather after beating up Bolton during your time in solitary. It's quick, it's painless, and he's only here for about 10 minutes, then it's right back to not even existing. This was the perfect use of the character, seeing as we were all pretty tired of him taking the spotlight from people that were supposed to be the main villains. So please, let's keep it that way. We've gotten enough Joker-centric Bat media for the foreseeable future, and Batman has such a massive rogues gallery that you could make 50 Arkham games and still have new villains to bring in and do something unique with. Let the clown rot away and corrupt Harley in the background, and give us someone new.
Besides, the first rule of comedy is never repeat a gag.
That said, one idea that I had back before Arkham Shadow even came out, that I'd still really like to see, is a remix of Arkham Asylum's therapy sessions.
Come in, sit down, take off your mask.
Throughout Asylum, you can visit the patient intake area to get quote-unquote therapy sessions with Joker before the end of the game. They change every time you visit, giving some pretty fun interactions with the clown outside of the main story. If Shadow 2 were to go for another mystery-like story, I would love to see Batman asking Joker for advice on how to figure it out. There's a deleted scene from the Matt Reeves Batman where exactly this happens. Batman doesn't know how to approach taking down the Riddler, so goes to Arkham Asylum to ask Joker for advice on how he thinks. It's a fantastic scene, that you can watch on YouTube by the way, that I'd love to see play out in the game for myself. We have moments like it in Arkham Shadow as is, with the Otis interrogation and technically talking to Joker in solitary. But to have this completely optional area of the game that you can go to talk to Joker, or even other villains like in the Night GCPD, would be awesome to see. In that regard, if this game has us taking down multiple villains throughout the story Arkham Knight style, I'd just love to have a lockup area where we can see everyone we've put away. I doubt they'd be able to do that, but if they could, sign me up.
You're late for your appointment. Very rude.
This is the biggest gameplay change that I really want from an Arkham Shadow sequel, and if absolutely nothing else, this is the biggest improvement I want. Arkham Shadow Predator, while it does get the feel of classic Predator right, they honestly really stumbled when it came to getting the full picture. The problem is that you don't have many unique takedown methods, and the ones that you do have are way too friggin' powerful. The silent takedown alone is flat out busted in Arkham Shadow. You're able to take enemies down in mere seconds, completely undetected with this move, then just return to the shadows like nothing happened. It was already a pretty broken move in classic Arkham, but Shadow took it to a whole other level because of how friggin' fast it is. Classic Arkham silent takedowns at least had the time factor. As great as it was to be quiet, you had to invest time into doing it, with the takedown taking a minimum of 4 to 5 seconds, depending on the animation you get. That's 4 to 5 seconds that you are completely defenseless and at the mercy of the enemies walking around a corner and finding you. In Arkham Shadow though, it is nearly instantaneous. You just gotta rock your arms back and forth a bit to choke the guy out, and that's it, they're down. And especially with the upgraded version, which is an upgrade you can acquire immediately upon starting the game if you've got upgrade points, it's somehow even faster. Therefore, the risk of going down, taking too long, and being seen is basically never there, because the takedown is so freaking fast. You can take out 2 guys with silent takedowns in Shadow in the time it takes for 1 to be done in the classic games. This move is broken, and frankly just needs to be nerfed, just so that Predator can feel a lot more dangerous. What I think they could do is add a little bit of randomness behind the move, like they already do with your various attacks during combat. Combat is kept interesting by the fact that you will always have a random move every time you attack. If you were allowed to just go gung-ho on every enemy in sight, it would just be boring, because you'd be swinging your fists around like an idiot, waiting for everyone to go down. The randomness makes you need to focus on what you're doing every step of the way, and forces you to slow down and think. If they implemented something similar with silent takedowns, forcing you to slow down and perform a specific action during the takedown, I think it would be a lot more balanced. Not only would it take more time, but it wouldn't allow you to get into a rhythm of doing the same moves over and over again, forcing you to constantly adapt to whatever changes are thrown your way and make the takedown feel overall more satisfying to use. And would therefore make the bread and butter move of Arkham Predator feel more like the powerful but still balanced move it really should be. And as much as I love using this move, they really need to just flat out remove the drop attack takedown outside of ambushes and combat encounters. This thing is way too strong in its current state. It's basically the equivalent of a glide kick ground takedown without any of the windup that comes with those 2 moves. You literally just glide over top the enemy, drop on top of them, grab before you land, then punch them 3 times for an instant knockout. That is way too strong of an option from on top of a gargoyle. I appreciate its inclusion because it makes Predator sections a whole lot faster in speedrunning, but from a casual perspective, it's just way too powerful. Now this would work in separate kinds of takedowns, such as through weak walls, grates, or vent covers, but because you can do this from gargoyles, which are your most advantageous hiding spaces, it's just way too powerful. It really makes me wonder why they even have the glide kick ground takedown combo in the game when this move exists. Because it's literally the exact same thing except better in every single way. It's more consistent because there's no random factor over where the enemy's body is going to land after the kick. It's faster because it removes the kick, as well as only being 3 punches instead of 5 punches and a slam. And you don't have to wait for the enemy to be in the ground takedown available state after kicking them. which is a small window of downtime after the kick as you're literally just jumping on their head to initiate the attack. It's way too powerful, and I think they should just flat out remove it. In the regard of using a similar idea for environment takedowns though, they really need to add more stuff, and more ways to access it. To be honest, most of these maps are really barren of environmental stuff. At most, each will have a single weak wall, maybe a few fire extinguishers, and a couple of grates. Which compared to the old games, even Asylum just feels like a missed opportunity. Some of the best moments in classic Arkham are finding some obscure hiding spot with a grate that allows you to get an enemy with a unique takedown. There are a few of those in Arkham Shadow, but I just want to see more in the sequel. Really encourage me to get creative and find these special spots that reward me with something great upon finding them. Hell, implement those sliding vents from Arkham Knight that allow you to go straight from the gargoyles down to the ground in an instant. That would be really fun and frankly really useful, especially with the VR setting. And finally, if absolutely nothing else in this section is taken, please just take this one. Add ledge takedowns. They put so much time and effort implementing a glorious climbing system in Arkham Shadow, which is one of the single best aspects of the entire game. It's so fun using Batman's strength to literally climb ladders and pipes and hang from ledges. But you're never able to use it in Predator because, for some reason, you just can't hide by hanging from ledges. You will always be seen if you try hanging from a ledge to avoid an enemy, and even if you get into a situation where the enemy doesn't see you, you can't pull them over the ledge to knock them out. You're instead just given another silent takedown, which is nowhere near a worthy enough reward for the danger you put yourself in to get to that point. Let us pull enemies from a ways away and throw them over the edge to knock them out. It's been a staple since Arkham Asylum, and we need that reward for getting ourselves into such a precarious situation. And furthermore, reward our creative thinking. Please, if nothing else in this section, if nothing else in this entire video, please give us ledge takedowns.
Fear is only the first step.
In that same vein, we absolutely need a boss that relies on stealth. I'm not expecting something on par with Mr. Freeze, though if they do pull that off, props to them. I just want something where Batman suddenly becomes the prey. Give us TN1 Bane, Killer Croc's Lair, hell, Jason Todd would even work. Something where we are no longer the one in control. They gave us a little tease of it with Shrike during Chapter 1, but I just need more, man. Make us terrified as we cower in a corner or inside a grate. Make us walk slowly so as to not create too much noise. Have us constantly looking over our shoulder in case they somehow snuck up behind us. Something that makes us scared to be in Batman's position. It would be especially effective in VR regardless of Batman's Predator balancing, because it would simply force you to become more aware. One of my favorite moments in Arkham Shadow is during the Shadow Batman fight, when the battlefield becomes obscured with a thick fog and you need to use your ears to listen for the Shadow's footsteps around you. It was amazing because it used the VR gimmick to its advantage in a way that you could never get from a traditional third-person game. Now imagine a pitch black room without your detective vision against an enemy that's constantly ambushing you. The only way to know where he's gonna strike is to listen and turn your head until you find the source. It would be friggin' terrifying, and that's exactly what I want. Put Batman in a scary situation, please and thank you.
You let evil live, then you must die.
You know, is it justice you're after? Or vengeance?
Leslie, spare me the sermon.
Don't use that fake voice with me.
We kinda need an explanation for why Leslie's not in the rest of the saga. And seeing as the most likely explanation is that she died at the hands of a supercriminal, I have a feeling that's where her story might go. Leslie was one of the best additions to the saga in Arkham Shadow. The only problem with her inclusion is that she literally doesn't exist anywhere else in the saga. No mention of her in any of the other games, not even in City Stories, which is where they basically put everyone from all of Batman canon who they can't fit into the main story. So we're really gonna need a reason why. And if that means we get a rerun of the Alfred scene from Origins, but I don't know, maybe without jump-starting a heart, then so be it. Just give us more Leslie before she dies so we can get some more sage advice to reflect on. She especially represents Bruce's early years, what with literally raising the boy from 8 years old. So seeing that side of his life suddenly falling apart, especially after all the work he's been putting in following her teaching and becoming a better hero, to transition to the more experienced later years Batman is something we definitely need to see.
But punishing bad guys isn't what makes a hero, you know. To be a hero, you have to save people too. The good people. Everyone.
Crap out of you.
One of my favorite moves from Arkham Asylum that they've inexplicably never brought back is the special combo throw. This move is just so much fun. Just casually grabbing a thug off the ground and throwing him into his buddies will never not be funny. They kinda brought it back in a different way with the critical throw counters in Arkham Knight, but it's just not the same. I want to literally pick guys up and throw them into their buddies like human-sized bowling. And I think that move could work perfectly in VR. Camouflaj already figured out the combo moves problem by having them tied to a single button input followed by using the appropriate action. So all they need to do is add an additional action to the list. They already have grabbing mechanics in place, where you just reach out without making a fist and Batman grabs. So just give the player the ability to do that during a special combo move and you've already got half the problem solved. Then just let us pick the guy up and throw him in whatever direction we please. It's so easy, and I would absolutely love to be able to do it in some way in the next game.
I saw a painting today, Le Char de l'Amour by Schuller. It's a bunch of people being carried off by the Angel of Death.
Okay, I lied again. There was one other character that it feels like they really set up as sequel bait. But this one was a lot easier to miss for most players. Throughout Arkham Shadow, Bruce will get messages in the Batcave from various people important to him, like Selina Kyle, Vicky Vale, and Lucius Fox. The most significant, however, is Andrea Beaumont.
I don't know. For some reason it reminded me of you.
Who casual viewers might not know from the name alone, but she comes from arguably the best Batman movie ever released, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. This was one of the only animated Batman movies to be released in theaters, and features a one-off character named Andrea Beaumont. Spoilers ahead, go watch the movie now if you somehow haven't, and then come back to the video. She was Bruce's love interest in the film, and very nearly became his wife, almost stopping him from becoming Batman. But, and this is your second spoiler warning, so click away now, she's also the titular Phantasm, a fellow masked vigilante who attempts to rid the entire city of mob activity by killing everyone even tangentially attached to them. It's an amazing story, easily one of the best that Batman has ever told. But point being, she appears in Arkham Shadow on voicemail, which implies that the early years portion of Mask of the Phantasm has taken place in the Arkhamverse. Kind of weird to wrap your head around, but it really makes sense, considering that's a portion of Bruce's life that we've never gotten to see. We start Arkham Origins 2 years into his career, and the flashbacks of Phantasm take place right at the start of year 1. So this call implies that within the next few years, the rest of Mask of the Phantasm could take place. However, I actually think, and to an extent really hope, that it doesn't. I mean, Mask of the Phantasm is one of the most popular and beloved Batman stories out there. Practically everyone who knows anything about Batman knows this story and knows its ending. So, what would Camouflaj really get out of retelling that story? We know firsthand, thanks to Arkham Shadow, that they will absolutely take inspiration from other Batman stories, but they will not do full retellings. The story of the Rat King is heavily inspired by the new Batman Adventures episode Judgment Day, but is far from a direct retelling of the episode. While it does center on a new vigilante-like force of justice residing in Harvey Dent, the difference comes in the approach. Whereas the Judge was a full-blown vigilante like Batman trying to take down supercriminals, the Rat King was trying to stop corruption and raise the oppressed people at the bottom of the totem pole up. They implement that very important twist on it to make the story their own. And I really don't think they could do that with Mask of the Phantasm. The only way I could see it working is if they completely changed who the Phantasm was, pulling something similar to the Long Halloween movies where they play with our expectations of who the killer is supposed to be, then bring that character in to show they're innocent. The problem with doing that, however, would be that that completely diminishes the point of the story in the first place. The whole reason that the Phantasm exists is because of Andrea's connection to the mob via her father. The reason that she left for Europe was because her father was being threatened by the mob, and she only came back to the States and became the Phantasm after his murder at the hands of that same mob. The specific mobster, by the way, being Jack Napier prior to his transformation into Joker, who is also implied to be killed at the end of the movie, and we know that Joker lives for the next 8 years, so they couldn't even do that great ending either. So why would the Phantasm even exist without her? Furthermore, the Phantasm story is all about taking out the mob, and unfortunately, we know the fates of most of the mob families already. The Sionis family survives all the way through to the end of Arkham Knight, as we know Red Hood ultimately kills Black Mask. Falcone is currently locked up in Blackgate, and lost his blackmail ledger to Enigma, meaning he's likely going to be stuck there for a while. All the way up until his whole family up and abandons Gotham for the relative safety of Bloodhaven because of Tiger taking out their forces one by one while setting up Arkham City. The only one we don't know anything about is the Maroni family, because they've simply never made an appearance aside from the phone call that we get with Sal in Arkham Shadow.
You think this is funny, huh? You think we don't got the caller IDs?
But we know from the Arkham City stories that the family was gunned down in their restaurant shortly before the events of the game by the Falcone family, killing every prominent member while the others were locked up in the city prison. While there are other mob families prevalent to the story of Gotham, Thorn, Stromwell, heck, Phantasm even follows a completely different family, being the Valestras, none of them have ever been mentioned in the Arkhamverse. It's only ever been Falcone, Sionis, and Maroni. So, seeing as we've never even heard of these families in the Arkhamverse, it implies that they either don't exist in this continuity, or that their story simply wasn't impactful enough. It feels like the Arkhamverse wants to focus on these 3 families specifically, but seeing as they all survive well into the next decade, they can't have the Phantasm close in and clean house like she does in the movie. Knowing what we do about how Camouflaj tells stories, I highly doubt they'd go out of their way to just do a full-on adaptation of the story without changing anything. It worked for Cold Heart because it was a short DLC story that nearly added to the story that we already had in base Origins. If they wanted to do the same thing and make a DLC focused on Mask of the Phantasm, so be it. But they really shouldn't make a full game around the adaptation, at least without good reason. If they can find a way to do it, by all means they can and absolutely certainly will. I've underestimated them before and been very pleasantly surprised, so I'd be glad to be surprised again. Until I see the proof in the pudding though, my hope is that the Phantasm stays in the movie and Andrea stays a voicemail.
They're all looking around, but she's staring straight at the viewer, looking at you like she can see every sin you've ever committed.
Well now, my son, have you come to confess your sins?
Another of my few complaints with Arkham Shadow is that we just didn't get enough of Ratcatcher. They hyped him up so much in the trailers, and Carrie Payton steals every single scene that he's in. But he's also only in, like, 3 scenes. I was really expecting more from him, especially because he's supposed to be the Rat King's right-hand guy. So if they do decide to follow through and continue his story in the sequel, I'd love to see him take control of his life and finally gain some agency. Arkham Origins and Shadow have built up his reputation as nothing more than a follower, who doesn't have it in him to actually take control and lead for once. So seeing as his 2 previous leaders have both fallen at the hands of Batman, it would follow that 3rd time's the charm and he's ready to finally take action himself against Bats. That being said, if they were to do this, it would mean that we have 2 games in a row with a heavy rat motif, unless they decide to relegate him to a side quest, but I have a feeling they wouldn't want to do that either, especially because Camouflaj's approach to making games seems to be shining the spotlight on villains who haven't gotten anything yet. So I'm left in a weird middle ground where I really want more of Otis Flanagan, but I also don't really want more rats. I don't know, maybe Camouflaj will figure it out, maybe they won't. We'll just have to wait and see.
The Rat King will reveal himself on his day of wrath. Even I still have scales upon my eyes despite my devotion. He is coming.
Pick your poison. One can kill you, the other can get you killed.
I really want to know what happens with Joe after he learns the truth at the end of Arkham Shadow. Does he take his own life knowing what he created? Does Bruce find him after the fact and try talking things out? Does he go as Batman or even Matches to give him a familiar face? What happens after he runs away? Just one scene, that's all I ask. One scene that shows where Joe went after Bruce told him to just get the hell out of here. They created such an interesting dynamic between Bruce and Joe in Arkham Shadow, and I know it has to go somewhere. They can't just leave us hanging like this. Hell, make this the post-credits scene for New Game Plus if we have to. I just need to see my man Joe again. Give us closure on the first real friend Bruce has made in years.
Joe, just get the hell out of here. Joe, now!
The cops, the courts, the clique. Control us. By my orders, gut the pigs in the pigsty.
Finally, a villain that we've had on deck for the last 15 years and never gotten anything for. If there were ever a game to put a Batman reflection villain in, it would be a sequel to Arkham Shadow. The mirror image of Batman coming to Gotham as he started to get things cleaned up, only to create more chaos than before by targeting the police force that Batman has worked so hard to get on his side. At Arkham Shadow's point in the timeline, we're around halfway through year 3, and the police have only just started occasionally working with him. He's got Gordon on lockdown, but the rest of the force is usually pretty up in the air, especially after the alleged killing of Shrike during Chapter 1. They trust him enough to bring the bad guys in, but they're very on edge, and wouldn't hesitate to shoot him if he moved a little bit too fast. So imagine a new costumed crazy coming into town, clad in armor, a mask, and a cape, whose main targets are enforcers of the law. That would put Batman to the test, potentially turning the police force against him as he tries to clear his name, turning the entire city against him after he worked so hard to change and become their protector. The only person still being on his side being Gordon, because he knows Batman would never turn to something like this, even though the two have only been working together for a short time now. Hell, if you want to go down a truly terrifying route, let's have this be the Batman Gets Framed story. Like I said, the whole of Gotham is still pretty on edge about Batman. Lots of them agree that he's a hero and is only there to help, but a lot more people still see him as this dangerous vigilante who is the worst kind of criminal. Lots of the police believed that he was responsible for Shrike falling to his death, meaning some still see him as a possible killer. It took Bruce reviving a man as horrible as Bane for Gordon to realize how he does things. So the rest of the police force seeing him potentially kill a high-ranking member in a terrorist organization they've been hunting for weeks now would not put them in the highest spirits. And this is all while Batman has actually been doing the exact opposite and becoming a better hero the whole time behind the scenes. He's been putting in the work to better his public image and become the well-respected and loved Batman of the Kevin Conroy years. So what if there's suddenly just a wild shift in that goal, and Batman is framed by this new mysterious vigilante doing everything that Batman would never do? This would then put Batman in a terrifying position where he has to prove his innocence, but also not accidentally become guilty or just flat out die. It would be the culmination of his arc from both Shadow and Origins, where he has to prove that he actually became a better, more compassionate, and less violent hero, but also one that knows he can't do this all on his own and starts more heavily relying on his allies to get him out of impossible situations. God, just thinking about all these possibilities is getting me so excited for something that probably won't even happen. But hey, a man can dream. And on top of everything else that would make Prometheus a great inclusion is the fact that it would create a fantastic final boss fight. Think of the Dark Link fight from Ocarina of Time, where your opponent essentially copies your movements and you have to patiently wait for your opening. Now put that situation in a VR headset where you control every single punch and block with your own fists. A fight like this would be majestic, and it's making me really hope that Prometheus is the main villain of this next game.
Either way, you're on the hook for killing one of the last honest cops in Gotham City! You feel that, Batman? Those are the walls closing in.
I have very high hopes for the inevitable sequel to Batman Arkham Shadow. And while I highly doubt even half the stuff in this video will come to fruition, I can hold out hope for at least one. Camouflaj knows exactly what they're doing, and I trust them with whatever they may or may not be planning. I just hope we won't have to wait too long and watch the Aslume go even more insane. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna have to play a different superhero game to hold me over. But with that said, do all of the YouTube stuff, cause seriously y'all, right here if you need to bounce some ideas around. Call me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, chaps.
You're not the Rat King.
You finally figured that out? You churlish brute. Well, whoever he is, maybe I should thank him.